Near the well at the center of the square, 3 women gathered, their voices hushed though their eyes gleamed with mischief. Marta, the baker's wife, leaned close, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Have you heard? The Queen spends more gold on gowns from France than on grain for her people. My cousin's husband saw the wagons himself, filled with silks and jewels." The second woman, Agnes, smirked, clearly savoring the tale. "Jewels, gowns, and wine before dawn, so they say. But it is not her finery that makes tongues wag, it is her company." The third woman gasped, clutching her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "Company? Agnes, mind your words." But Agnes only leaned closer, voice sharp as a blade. "A knight. A tall one, often at the chapel after dark." "You think the Queen kneels to pray alone?" The women burst into nervous laughter, quickly muffling themselves. Yet, like smoke escaping from a chimney, their words had already risen into the air. A stable boy overheard, carried the tale to the tavern, where drunken men embellished it with more filth. By dusk, the Queen had become the talk of Blackford, proud, wasteful, adulterous. By morning, the rumor ran through the town like fire across dry thatch. But the ears of peasants were not the only ones to catch the whispers. Among the crowd was an old man, a beggar more loyal to coin than to conscience. He dragged himself before the castle gates and croaked to the guards, "The market speaks foul of Her Majesty. They spit upon her name. If left unchecked, tongues may soon bite the crown itself." The words reached the ears of the Queen's advisers, and soon the decision was made. Insult against the Queen was no small matter, it was treason against the throne. That very evening, armored boots thundered into the market square. Torches flared, steel clanged, and the townsfolk scattered in terror. The gossiping women were dragged from their homes by their hair, their pleas ignored as neighbors looked away, pretending not to hear. One young woman, Ellen, barely 20 summers old, was bound though she swore she was innocent. "I only repeated what I heard. I meant no harm, by God's mercy," she cried. The captain of the guard sneered down at her. "A rumor repeated is a rumor owned. The crown does not weigh intent, only words." Fear swept across Blackford. People whispered no more. Some betrayed neighbors to save themselves, others hid in silence, but all knew one truth: the Queen had heard the gossip, and her wrath was swift. The next morning, the bells tolled, summoning the town to the square. Farmers, bakers, and smiths gathered, their faces pale, their breaths held tight in their throats. Upon the wooden platform stood the herald, clad in crimson robes. He unrolled a parchment and bellowed for all to hear, "By decree of His Majesty's court, those who have slandered our Queen with lies and foul whispers shall face public chastisement. Let it be known, loyalty is spoken in truth, and treachery in tongues. For their offense, they shall be whipped before the eyes of their neighbors, that none may forget the cost of slander." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mothers pulled their children close, fathers lowered their gazes. No one dared speak. Ellen and the others were hauled to the whipping post. Their wrists were tied tight against the rough-hewn timber. A hush fell upon the crowd, broken only by the crack of leather as the executioner unfurled his whip. The executioner was a man of brute strength, his arms corded with muscle, his expression cold as stone. He raised the whip, let it coil in the air, and brought it down with a sound that split the silence like thunder. Crack! Ellen screamed, her voice echoing through the square. Blood welled where the lash had torn her skin. Crack! Crack! The crowd flinched with every strike. Some wept in pity, others looked on with grim satisfaction, whispering that justice had been done. Yet none dared intervene. The Queen's honor was law, and to protest was to invite the whip upon oneself. By the 10th lash, Ellen's knees buckled. Tears streaked her dirt-stained face, yet she raised her head, forcing her voice past the pain. "Remember this," she cried, her voice trembling yet fierce. "In this kingdom, words are deadlier than swords. And silence is the only shield left to us." The executioner struck again, silencing her with blood and pain. At last, the order was given to stop. The women were cut free, their bodies broken, their dignity stripped, and they were left to crawl back into the mud as the guards marched away. That night, Blackford lay in uneasy silence. The market that once hummed with chatter now spoke only in hushed tones of bread, wool, and weather. The Queen's name passed no one's lips, not in praise, not in scorn. The people obeyed, but their obedience came not from loyalty, it came from fear. The whip had silenced their tongues, but it had also scarred their spirits.